Journey to the Roof of the World, Unveiling Himalaya's Hidden Secrets. Narrated by Sophia Atkins. Prologue: The Call of the Himalayas. Dr. Sophia Patel stared out the rain-soaked window of her small, cluttered office, her gaze lost in the grey mist that shrouded the city. The relentless patter of the raindrops against the pane was a constant reminder of the monotony that had become her life. As a successful psychologist, Sophia had spent years helping others unravel the tangled threads of their minds, but she had lost touch with her own. The once passionate and adventurous soul had been suffocated by the routine of her daily routine. The memories of her childhood, spent listening to her grandfather's tales of the Himalayas, seemed like a distant dream. The stories of towering peaks, verdant valleys, and ancient monasteries had sparked a fire within her, a fire that had long since dwindled to embers. The call of the Himalayas, a siren song that had once beckoned her, now whispered softly in the recesses of her mind. Sophia's thoughts were interrupted by the soft chime of her phone. She hesitated, wondering who could be disturbing her reverie. The name Rohan flashed on the screen, and a pang of guilt struck her chest. Her friend, confidant, and fellow adventurer Rohan had been trying to reach her for weeks. Sophia had been avoiding him, unsure of how to confront the sense of stagnation that had taken hold of her. As she hesitated, the phone buzzed again, this time with a text message. "Sophia, it's time. The Himalayas are calling. Meet me at the coffee shop at 5 p.m. Come prepared to leave." Sophia's heart skipped a beat. Rohan knew her too well. He knew that the only way to shake off the lethargy was to immerse herself in the rugged beauty of the Himalayas. The thought sent a shiver down her spine. Was she ready to confront the demons that had haunted her for so long? As Sophia packed her bags that evening, her hands trembled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. She had almost forgotten the thrill of adventure, the rush of adrenaline that came with pushing her limits. The memories of her grandfather's stories resurfaced, and she felt the weight of her forgotten dreams. The rain-soaked streets of the city blurred into a haze as Sophia made her way to the coffee shop. Rohan was already there, his eyes sparkling with a knowing glint. "You're coming with me, aren't you?" he asked, his voice laced with a gentle persuasion. Sophia nodded, the words stuck in her throat. As they sipped their coffee, Rohan outlined the plans, a trek to the base camp of Mount Everest, a journey that would take them through the heart of the Himalayas. Sophia's heart raced at the prospect of confronting the majestic peaks, of testing her limits, and of rediscovering the sense of purpose that had eluded her for so long. As they parted ways, Sophia felt the first whispers of the Himalayas' call growing louder, urging her to embark on a journey that would challenge her, transform her, and set her soul free. The rain-soaked city seemed to fade into the background as she gazed up at the darkening sky, the stars twinkling like diamonds in the vast expanse of the unknown. Chapter 1: The Decision. The sun had barely risen over the concrete jungle of New Delhi, but the air was already alive with the cacophony of car horns, chatter, and the wail of sirens. Amidst the chaos, Dr. Sophia Patel sat in her small, cluttered apartment, surrounded by maps, guidebooks, and scraps of paper covered in scribbled notes. Her eyes, a deep shade of brown, seemed to bore into the worn, creased surface of the Himalayan trekking map laid out before her. The route to Everest Base Camp, a siren's call she had been resisting for months, now beckoned her with an intensity that was hard to ignore. Sophia's mind was a maelstrom of conflicting desires and fears. As a successful cardiologist, she had spent years perfecting her skills, saving lives, and earning the respect of her peers. Yet, the thrill of adventure, the rush of adrenaline, and the sense of accomplishment that came with pushing her physical limits had always been her true passion. The Himalayas, with their towering peaks and unforgiving terrain, represented the ultimate challenge, one she felt compelled to undertake. The phone call from her best friend Rachel had been the catalyst. Rachel, a seasoned trekker, had just returned from a trip to the Annapurna circuit and was still basking in the afterglow of her experience. Her stories of breathtaking vistas, grueling climbs, and the warmth of the Nepalese people had awakened a long-dormant sense of restlessness within Sophia. The seed of doubt planted by Rachel's words had germinated into a full-blown obsession. Sophia's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of her phone buzzing on the coffee table. She hesitated for a moment before picking it up, hoping against hope that it wasn't her hospital calling to summon her for an emergency. The screen displayed her mother's name, and Sophia's heart sank. Her mother, a constant source of worry and concern, would not approve of her decision to embark on this trek. "Sophia, beta, what's this I hear about you planning to go trekking in the Himalayas?" Her mother's voice was laced with anxiety, the concern etched into every syllable. Sophia took a deep breath, steeling herself for the inevitable argument. "Mum, I've been thinking about this for a while now. I need to do this. I need to challenge myself, to push my limits and see what I'm capable of." "But Sophia, you're a doctor. You have a good life, a successful career. Why would you want to risk everything for some foolish adventure?" Sophia's patience was wearing thin. "Mum, this isn't about being foolish or reckless. This is about finding myself, about discovering what I'm truly capable of. I've been stuck in a rut, going through the motions of my daily routine without any sense of purpose. This trek is about finding that purpose, about reigniting my passion for life." The silence on the other end of the line was palpable, heavy with unspoken doubts and fears. Sophia knew her mother would never fully understand her reasons, but she hoped that, in time, she would come to respect her decision. With her mother's concerns temporarily assuaged, Sophia threw herself into the preparations for her trek. She spent hours poring over guidebooks, researching the best routes, and gathering gear. The thought of the daunting task ahead was exhilarating, and Sophia felt her excitement grow with each passing day. She began training in earnest, hitting the gym and undertaking long, grueling hikes on the outskirts of the city. Her body, honed from years of neglect, protested the sudden onslaught of physical activity, but Sophia was determined to push through the pain. As the days turned into weeks, Sophia's apartment transformed into a makeshift gear depot. Her living room floor was awash with colourful sleeping bags, backpacks, and trekking poles. The air was thick with the smell of waterproofing sprays and the sound of rustling maps. In the midst of the chaos, Sophia felt a sense of purpose, of direction that she had been lacking for years. The Himalayas, with their towering peaks and unforgiving terrain, beckoned her, and Sophia knew that she was ready to answer the call. With her preparations well underway, Sophia couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement, of anticipation, as the days ticked down to her departure. The thought of the unknown, of the challenges that lay ahead, was both daunting and thrilling. As she lay in bed, surrounded by the scattered remnants of her gear, Sophia felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew that she was making the right decision, that this trek was exactly what she needed to rediscover herself, to find her true purpose. The Himalayas, with their majestic beauty and unforgiving power, awaited her. Sophia was ready to face the challenge, to embark on a journey that would change her life forever. Chapter 2. The Guide. As I emerged from the tea house, the crisp morning air enveloped me, carrying the sweet scent of juniper and the promise of adventure. The sun was slowly rising over the Himalayas, casting a golden glow over the sleepy town of Lukla. I stretched my arms, feeling the excitement build up in my chest, and began to scan the bustling street for my guide, Tenzin. Among the throng of trekkers, porters, and locals, one figure stood out, a man with a rugged, weathered face, a kind smile, and piercing brown eyes that seemed to hold a deep wisdom. He wore a faded blue jacket adorned with patches and badges, and carried a sturdy wooden staff, worn smooth by years of use. This was Tenzin, my Sherpa guide, who would lead me through the treacherous terrain of the Himalayas and, I hoped, help me find my inner peace. As I approached him, Tenzin nodded in recognition, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Namaste, my friend," he said, his deep voice low and soothing. "Today we begin our journey." We walked through the quiet streets of Lukla, Tenzin leading the way, as we navigated through the morning chaos. The town was alive with the sound of yaks, bells clanging, and the murmur of conversations in Nepali and Tibetan. As we walked, Tenzin shared stories about the region, its people, and the ancient traditions that governed their lives. "The Himalayas are not just mountains, my friend," he said, his eyes gazing up at the towering peaks. "They are the roof of the world, the sacred abode of the gods." We Sherpas believe that the mountains hold the secrets of the universe, and those who venture into their realm must show respect and humility. As we passed by the colourful prayer flags, flapping in the gentle breeze, Tenzin explained the significance of the 5 colours. Blue for the sky, white for the air, red for fire, green for water, and yellow for earth. "These flags carry our prayers and blessings to the gods," he said, asking for protection, guidance, and wisdom on our journey. Our conversation was interrupted by the sound of horns and the chatter of trekkers as we reached the trailhead of the Everest Base Camp trek. The path unwound before us, a serpentine trail that would wind its way through forests, villages, and glaciers, eventually leading us to the foot of the highest mountain in the world. Tenzin handed me a small, intricately carved wooden amulet. "This is a blessing from the monastery of Tengboshi," he said. "It will protect you on our journey and remind you of the importance of compassion, wisdom, and courage." As I tied the amulet around my neck, I felt a sense of gratitude towards this wise and gentle man who had already begun to teach me the value of respect, humility, and mindfulness. I knew that the days ahead would be challenging, but with Tenzin by my side, I felt a sense of comfort and reassurance. With a deep breath, we set off on our journey, our footsteps echoing through the forest, as the Himalayas loomed before us, their majestic peaks reaching for the sky. The air was cool and crisp, filled with the scent of pine and earth, as we began our ascent into the unknown. As we walked, Tenzin pointed out the different species of trees, the various types of rocks, and the colourful wildflowers that dotted the landscape. He spoke about the importance of living in harmony with nature, about respecting the land and its creatures, and about the delicate balance between humans and the environment. The trail steepened, and the trees grew taller, casting dappled shadows on the ground. The sound of the river grew louder, and soon we found ourselves standing on the banks of the Dud Kosi, its crystal-clear waters rushing towards the valley below. "This is the river of milk," Tenzin said, his eyes smiling. "It will guide us on our journey, reminding us of the beauty and power of nature." As we followed the river, the landscape unfolded before us, a tapestry of green and brown, with the snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas rising in the distance. I felt my heart pounding in my chest, my senses alive with the sights, sounds, and smells of this incredible place. I knew that I was not just embarking on a physical journey, but also an emotional and spiritual one. And with Tenzin by my side, I felt ready to face the challenges that lay ahead, knowing that I would emerge from this experience a changed person, with a newfound appreciation for the beauty, wisdom, and wonder of the Himalayas. Chapter 3. The Team. Chapter 3. The Team, meeting the trekking team and their diverse background. The sun had barely risen over the bustling streets of Lukla, casting a warm glow over the sleepy town. I stood outside the Yeti mountain home, sipping a steaming cup of Nepalese tea, my senses still reeling from the previous day's journey. The din of construction, chatter, and clanging pots created a symphony of sounds that echoed through the valley. I felt a mix of excitement and trepidation as I waited to meet my trekking team. A gentle tap on my shoulder broke my reverie. I turned to face a tall, lanky figure with a kind smile and piercing brown eyes. "Tashi Delek, my name is Lakpa," he said, extending a calloused hand. "I'm your lead guide for the trek to Everest Base Camp." I shook his hand, feeling a firm grip that instilled confidence. "Namaste, Lakpa. I'm Rachel, the writer." As we exchanged pleasantries, a group of individuals began to trickle in, each carrying a unique aura and story. There was Nima, the soft-spoken assistant guide, with a shy demeanour that belied his impressive climbing resume. Then there was Dr. Maria, a Spanish physician on a mission to study high-altitude medicine, her bright smile and infectious laughter immediately putting everyone at ease. Rounding out our group were two seasoned trekkers, John and Sarah, a retired couple from Colorado who had spent years exploring the Himalayas and were back for another adventure. As we gathered in the hotel's communal area, Lakpa began to introduce us to the rest of the team. There was Pasang, the gruff but lovable cook who had spent years working on treks and expeditions across the Himalayas. His culinary skills were legendary, and his no-nonsense attitude was tempered by a quick wit and a kind heart. Next, we met Tenzin, the young and ambitious porter, who was on his first major treat. His enthusiasm was palpable, and his eagerness to learn and prove himself was inspiring. As we sipped our tea and devoured Pasang's delectable breakfast spread, the team began to gale. Conversations flowed easily, and laughter erupted as we shared stories of our diverse backgrounds and motivations for undertaking this journey. I was struck by the sense of camaraderie that had already developed, a testament to Lakpa's exceptional leadership and the team's collective spirit. As we prepared to set out, Lakpa took a moment to share his own story. Born in the Solo Khumbu region, he had grown up surrounded by the majestic Himalayas. His family had a long history of guiding and climbing, and he had spent years honing his skills on the treacherous slopes of Everest. Yet it was his humility, kindness, and deep respect for the mountain that truly defined him. "I'm not just a guide," he said, his eyes sparkling with sincerity. "I'm a Sherpa, a son of the Himalayas. This mountain is my home, and I'm honoured to share it with you." His words resonated deeply, and I felt a sense of gratitude toward Lakpa and his team for sharing their culture and expertise with us. As we set out on our journey, I knew that we were not just trekking to Everest Base Camp Est, we were embarking on a transformative adventure that would challenge our bodies, minds, and spirits. With our gear in order and our bellies full, we set out of Lukla, tracing the gentle contours of the Dudkosi River. The morning air was crisp, with a hint of wood smoke and incense wafting from the nearby monasteries. As we walked, the landscape shifted from verdant forests to scrubby bushes, and finally to the rugged, rocky terrain that would become our constant companion. The trek was underway, and I felt a sense of excitement and trepidation as we ventured deeper into the heart of the Himalayas. The team moved as a well-oiled machine, each member playing their role with precision and care. I knew that the journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but with Lakpa and his team by my side, I felt a sense of confidence that we would overcome any obstacle that came our way. At 4,000 meters, each breath felt like sipping air through a straw, my lungs working overtime to extract oxygen. Our group moved in slow motion along the winding trail, each step a deliberate act of will. Nuptsy's distinctive black rock face was barely visible beneath its fresh snow coating, like a warrior wearing a white cloak. The morning sun caught its edges, creating a diamond-like sparkle that seemed to mock our earthbound struggles. Chapter 4, Lukla. As our small propeller plane, a Dornier 228, descended onto the Lukla airstrip, I felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. The rugged, rocky landscape unfolded before us, and the roar of the engines grew louder as we touched down on the narrow runway. I exhaled a sigh of relief as the plane came to a halt, its propellers still whirring. We had made it to Lukla, the gateway to the Everest region. Outside, the bright sunlight was a welcome respite from the dull, overcast skies of Kathmandu. The air was crisp, with a hint of wood smoke and the sweet aroma of juniper incense wafting from the nearby monastery. As we disembarked, the cool breeze carried the chatter of locals and trekkers, the clinking of teacups, and the occasional barking of dogs. Our guide, Tenzin, greeted us with a warm smile, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Welcome to Lukla, friends," he said, as he expertly handled our luggage. Today, we begin our journey to Everest Base Camp. After checking into the Paradise Lodge, a cosy, family-run establishment, we freshened up and gathered in the dining area for a hearty breakfast. The sun-drenched courtyard was filled with the chatter of trekkers, guides, and locals, all exchanging stories and sharing laughter. Over steaming cups of Nepali tea, Tenzin briefed us on the day's itinerary. "We'll begin with a gentle hike to Phakting, about 3 hours from here," he explained, unfolding a detailed topographic map. "The trail follows the Dud-Kosi River and will pass through several villages and forests. It's a relatively easy day, but we'll need to acclimate to the higher altitude." As we devoured our breakfast, I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the sheer scale of the surrounding mountains. The snow-capped peaks of Kongdari and Kusum Kanguru rose majestically in the distance, their rugged beauty humbling. With our backpacks loaded and our sense of adventure piqued, we set off on the winding trail that would lead us to Phakting. The initial ascent was gentle, allowing us to warm up our muscles and adjust to the higher elevation. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming rhododendron trees, their vibrant pink and purple flowers adding splashes of colour to the lush green landscape. As we walked, Tenzin regaled us with stories of the region's history and mythology. He pointed out the various types of flora and fauna, explaining their significance in Sherpa culture. We passed through the villages of Shorikaka and Chuang, where locals greeted us with warm smiles and gentle namastes. After a few hours of walking, the terrain began to change. The trail narrowed, and the incline grew steeper. We encountered our first set of steep stone steps, which tested our stamina and agility. The air grew thinner, and I could feel the altitude affecting my breathing. Tenzin encouraged us to take regular breaks, reminding us to hydrate and pace ourselves. As we neared Phakting, the landscape shifted again. The forest gave way to a picturesque valley with the Dud-Kosi River flowing gently through it. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm, golden light over the scene. We arrived in Phakting in the late afternoon, weary but exhilarated by our first day on the trail. The village was nestled in a tranquil valley, surrounded by towering mountains and lush forests. We settled into the Riverview Lodge, a cosy, family-run establishment where we were greeted with steaming cups of tea and warm smiles. As we rested our tired muscles, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for this journey. The beauty of the Himalayas was already leaving an indelible mark on my soul. I knew that the challenges ahead would be daunting, but with Tenzin's guidance and the camaraderie of my fellow trekkers, I felt ready to face whatever lay in store. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, I drifted off to sleep, my heart filled with anticipation for the adventures that awaited us on the trail to Everest Base Camp. Chapter 5. Phakting. As we left Lukla's airstrip behind, the rugged terrain unfolded before us like a canvas of untamed beauty. The trekking trail, a serpentine path, wound its way down the mountain, disappearing into the valley below. We followed, our footsteps echoing off the canyon walls, the sound of rushing water growing louder with each step. The scent of damp earth and rhododendron filled the air, invigorating our senses after the confines of the plain. Our guide, Tenzin, led the way, his strides long and purposeful. His eyes, a deep, piercing brown, seemed to drink in the landscape, as if he were savouring every detail. I watched him, fascinated by the fluid way he moved, as if the mountain were an extension of his own body. As we descended, the valley floor came into view, and my breath caught in my throat. The Himalayas, those legendary giants, rose up from the earth, their snow-capped peaks shimmering like diamonds in the morning sun. The sheer scale of the mountains left me awestruck, a sense of reverence washing over me like a cool breeze. We stopped at a bend in the trail, and I turned to Tenzin, my eyes wide with wonder. The Himalayas, I whispered, as if speaking aloud, might shatter the magic of the moment. Tenzin's face creased into a warm smile. "Welcome to the roof of the world," he said, his voice low and soothing. As we entered Fakeding, the village unfolded before us like a tapestry of colourful prayer flags fluttering in the gentle breeze. The village, nestled in the heart of the valley, seemed to pulse with a quiet energy, as if the very essence of the Himalayas had infused its streets and homes. We made our way to the lodge, a cosy, family-run establishment that would be our home for the night. The proprietor, a warm, round-faced woman named Dower, greeted us with a warm smile and a steaming cup of chai. As we sipped our tea, I couldn't help but notice the intricate, hand-carved wooden decorations that adorned the walls. The vibrant colours and patterns, a testament to the rich cultural heritage of the Sherpa people. As we settled into the lodge, Tenzin regaled us with stories of the Sherpa people, their history and traditions. He spoke of the importance of Buddhism in their daily lives, of the revered monasteries that dotted the landscape, and of the deep respect they held for the natural world. As the evening drew to a close, we made our way to the local monastery, where the monks welcomed us with open arms. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the soft, melodic chanting of the monks created a sense of peace, a feeling of being enveloped in a warm, comforting embrace. As I watched the monks, their faces aglow with devotion, I felt a sense of wonder, a sense of awe at the beauty and richness of this ancient culture. It was as if I had stumbled upon a hidden treasure, a treasure that would stay with me long after I left these sacred mountains behind. As I lay in bed, the sound of the river outside my window, a gentle lullaby, I couldn't help but reflect on the day's events. The Himalayas, those towering giants, had left me humbled, a sense of reverence washing over me like a cool breeze. The Sherpa people, with their warm smiles and open hearts, had welcomed me into their world, sharing with me the beauty and richness of their culture. As I drifted off to sleep, I knew that this journey was not just about reaching the summit of Everest, but about the people, the landscapes, and the experiences that would forever change me. The Himalayas, it seemed, had only just begun to reveal their secrets, and I was eager to see what the next day would bring. Chapter 6. Namche Bazaar. As we traversed the winding trail, the majestic Himalayas towered above us, their rugged peaks still capped with a dusting of snow. The air was crisp, with a hint of wood smoke carried on the gentle breeze. Our group had been trekking for days, and the thrill of adventure was still fresh in our minds. However, the reality of high-altitude trekking was starting to set in. Fatigue was creeping into our bones, and the relentless uphill climb was taking its toll. Our guide, Tenzin, had been emphasizing the importance of acclimatization from the onset of our journey. "The Himalayas are unforgiving," he would say. "Respect the mountain, and it will respect you." We were now at an altitude of 3,440 meters, and the effects of thin air were beginning to manifest. Headaches, nausea, and lethargy were common complaints among our group. As we entered the bustling town of Namche Bazaar, the sounds of laughter and commerce filled the air. This Sherpa settlement was a hub of activity, with trekkers, traders, and locals mingling in the narrow streets. We had arrived at our destination for the day, and the prospect of rest and exploration was a welcome respite from the grueling trek. After checking into the comfortable Sheridan Lodge, we spent the afternoon lounging in the sun-drenched courtyard, sipping tea and swapping stories of our journey so far. The lodge was a haven, with its warm atmosphere and generous hospitality. Our group was a diverse bunch, comprising seasoned trekkers, novice adventurers, and even a few solo travellers. As we shared our experiences, the sense of camaraderie grew, and we began to form bonds that would last a lifetime. As I sat on the sun-kissed patio, surrounded by the majestic Himalayas, I couldn't help but reflect on my own motivations for embarking on this journey. What was I seeking in these towering mountains? Was it a sense of adventure, a test of endurance, or something deeper? The questions swirled in my mind as I gazed out at the breathtaking vista. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the town, we ventured out to explore the local market. The narrow streets were a kaleidoscope of colours, with vibrant prayer flags fluttering in the breeze. The air was thick with the aroma of fresh bread, roasting coffee, and the sweet scent of incense. We wandered through the stalls, marvelling at the array of goods on display. There were intricately woven blankets, hand-carved wooden masks, and an assortment of trekking gear. The vendors were friendly and enthusiastic, eager to share their wares and stories with us. I purchased a beautiful silver pendant adorned with a turquoise stone from a smiling vendor named Pasang. As we explored the market, I noticed a group of locals gathered around a makeshift altar, chanting and performing a ritual ceremony. Tenzin explained that it was a traditional Buddhist puja, a prayer ceremony to bless the trekkers and ensure their safe passage. We watched in reverence, humbled by the sincerity and devotion of the Sherpa people. As the evening drew to a close, we gathered at the lodge's dining hall for a sumptuous dinner of traditional Nepalese cuisine. The tables were laden with steaming plates of dal bhat, momos and sel roti, accompanied by cups of hot tea and laughter. Our hosts, the lodge owners, regaled us with stories of their own adventures in the Himalayas, sharing tales of bravery, hardship, and the unwavering spirit of the Sherpa people. As I retired to my cosy room, the sounds of Namche Bazaar still echoed in my mind. The experience had been a sensory feast, a rich tapestry of sights, sounds, and emotions. I knew that this was just the beginning of our journey and that the challenges and wonders of the Himalayas still lay ahead. But for now, I was content to bask in the warmth of this vibrant town, surrounded by the majesty of the mountains and the kindness of the Sherpa people. Chapter 7, Tengboch. As we descended into the valley, the morning sun cast a golden glow on the landscape, illuminating the rolling hills and verdant forests. The air was crisp and clean, filled with the sweet scent of blooming rhododendrons. Our footsteps echoed through the stillness, a rhythmic cadence that accompanied us on our journey. We'd been walking for hours, but the scenery was so breathtaking that time seemed to stand still. Suddenly, the trees parted, and the majestic Tengbochi monastery came into view. Perched on a hilltop, its whitewashed walls glowed like a beacon, radiating an aura of peace and tranquility. The monastery's intricate stone carvings and vibrant prayer flags fluttered in the gentle breeze, as if beckoning us to enter its sacred realm. I felt a surge of excitement and reverence, sensing that we were about to embark on a journey that would transcend the physical realm. The monastery appeared deserted when we arrived, only the echo of distant chanting carried on the wind. We wandered the grounds uncertainly until discovering an elderly monk tending to a small garden of medicinal herbs. He barely acknowledged us at first, focused on his careful work. Only after we sat quietly nearby for some time did he slowly begin to share stories of the monastery's hidden history. We followed Lama Tenzin into the monastery, our footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The interior was dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of incense and butter lamps. We sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by vibrant thankas and intricate mandalas, as Lama Tenzin began to tell us the story of the monastery's history and significance. As we listened, entranced, Lama Tenzin spoke of the importance of compassion and interconnectedness. He told us of the monastery's role in preserving ancient Buddhist traditions and providing a haven for spiritual seekers. His words were like a gentle rain, nourishing our souls and awakening a sense of empathy within us. I glanced at my fellow trekkers, seeing the same look of wonder and awe reflected in their eyes. We were no longer just strangers bound together by a shared goal. We were becoming a community, united in our quest for self-discovery and spiritual growth. As the afternoon wore on, Lama Tenzin led us to the monastery's inner sanctum, where a magnificent statue of Lord Buddha sat in serene contemplation. The air was heavy with the scent of sandalwood and myrrh, and the soft chanting of monks in the background created a sense of timelessness. I felt as though I had stumbled upon a hidden treasure, a secret world that few outsiders had the privilege of experiencing. As we prepared to leave, I couldn't help but feel a pang of regret. We had reached an altitude of 3,870 meters, and the effects of the thin air were beginning to manifest. My head spun, and my legs felt like lead, as if the weight of the monastery's wisdom was crushing me. Lama Tenzin noticed my struggles and placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Remember, my friend, the journey is not just about reaching the summit, it is about the lessons we learn along the way. May the blessings of the monastery stay with you always." As we bid farewell to the monastery and Lama Tenzin, I felt a sense of gratitude and humility. We had been given a rare gift in a glimpse into the heart of Sherpa culture and Buddhist traditions. The path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I knew that we would face them together as a community bound by our shared experiences and newfound appreciation for the sacred. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the valley. We shouldered our packs, our footsteps echoing through the stillness as we continued our journey into the unknown. The Himalayas loomed before us, their majestic peaks a reminder of the wonders that lay ahead. Chapter 8. Dingboche. At 4,000 meters, each breath felt like sipping air through a straw, my lungs working overtime to extract oxygen. My hands trembled as I tried to adjust my backpack straps, the simple task requiring 3 attempts. Our group moved in slow motion along the winding trail, each step a deliberate act of will. The majestic mountains loomed above us, their snow-capped peaks glistening like diamonds in the morning sun. The scenic beauty was a balm to our tired souls, but we knew that the real challenge was only just beginning. Our guide, Tenzin, led the way, his wiry frame moving with ease as he navigated the rocky path. "Today we reach Dingboche," he announced, his voice carrying above the rustling of leaves and snapping of twigs underfoot. "The altitude will start to take its toll, so we must be careful." As we entered the picturesque village of Dingboche, nestled in a valley surrounded by towering peaks, a sense of relief washed over us. The rustic stone buildings, adorned with fluttering prayer flags, seemed to whisper promises of rest and respite. We made our way to the tea-house, where steaming cups of hot tea and platefuls of nourishing delbert awaited us. I collapsed onto the wooden bench, my legs aching from the relentless climb. Rachel, our team's nurse, examined my feet, her brow furrowed with concern. "You're doing great, but we need to keep an eye on those blisters," she warned, applying a liberal dose of antibiotic ointment. As we settled in, the altitude began its silent assault. Each step became a negotiation with gravity lift foot. Pause, breathe, step, repeat. My world narrowed to the simple rhythm of survival, counting breaths instead of steps. Even reaching for my water bottle became a conscious effort, my movements slow and deliberate in the thin air. Even Tenzin, our seasoned guide, was not immune, his normally cheerful demeanour clouded by a faint look of exhaustion. I wandered around the village, taking in the sights and sounds of this tiny Himalayan settlement. The villagers, wrapped in their traditional woolen clothing, went about their daily routines, their faces creased with hard-earned wisdom. I stopped at the local monastery, where a group of novice monks chanted and prayed, their voices rising and falling in a soothing cadence. As I watched the monks, I couldn't help but think of my own struggles. The trek had been a journey of self-discovery, but it was also a test of physical endurance. I thought back to the countless hours of training, the early morning runs, and the grueling gym sessions. It was all worth it, I realized, as I gazed up at the towering peaks. In that moment, I knew that I was capable of overcoming any obstacle. The Himalayas had a way of stripping away pretenses, revealing the raw, unbridled strength that lay within. I felt a sense of pride, knowing that I had tapped into a reservoir of inner power that would stay with me long after this trek was over. Tenzin gathered us around him, his eyes serious. "We need to acclimatize to the altitude," he explained. "Tomorrow, we'll take a rest day and explore the surrounding hills. It's essential that we allow our bodies to adapt to the thinner air." I nodded, grateful for the reprieve. As we dispersed, I caught up with Sarah, our team's photographer. "How's the altitude treating you?" I asked, noticing the dark circles under her eyes. "It's a challenge," she admitted, her voice laced with exhaustion. "But the scenery is worth it. I've never seen anything like this before." I smiled, knowing that the stunning vistas were only half the story. The real beauty lay in the people, the culture, and the inner transformations that took place on this sacred soil. As night fell, we gathered outside, our heads tilted back in awe. The star-studded sky was a breathtaking sight, the constellations twinkling like diamonds scattered across the velvet expanse. I felt small yet connected to something greater than myself. In this moment, I knew that the Himalayas had claimed a piece of my heart. I was no longer just a trekker. I was a pilgrim, seeking answers to life's profound questions in the sacred silence of these towering peaks. As we retired to our quarters, exhausted but exhilarated, I knew that the journey was far from over. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was ready. For in the mountains I had discovered a strength that would stay with me forever. Chapter 9. Shukong Rik. As I stepped out of the tea house, the crisp morning air slapped me awake. The sun was already high in the sky, casting a golden glow over the village of Shukong. I stretched my arms, feeling the familiar ache in my shoulders from the previous day's climb. Today was the day I'd been waiting for, the day I would reach the summit of Shukong Rai, the highest point on our trek so far. I met Tenzin and Pasang outside, their faces set with determination. We exchanged a brief namaste, and with a nod we began our ascent. The trail wound its way up the mountain, the incline gradual at first, but growing steeper with each step. The air was thin, and I could feel my lungs straining to extract oxygen from the rarefied atmosphere. As we climbed, the landscape transformed around us. The lush greenery of the valley gave way to rocky outcroppings and scrubby bushes, their branches bent and twisted by the fierce winds that whipped across the mountain. The higher we climbed, the more breathtaking the views became. The snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas stretched out before us, a dazzling display of natural beauty that left me awestruck. We reached the summit in a few hours, the wind howling around us like a chorus of banshees. I stood at the edge of the mountain, my feet planted firmly on the rocky ground, and gazed out at the stunning vista. For a moment, everything else faded into the background, and it was just me and the mountain. In that instant, something shifted inside me. I felt a sense of clarity, of purpose, that I had been searching for since the beginning of my journey. It was as if the mountain had whispered a secret in my ear, a secret that only I could hear. As I stood there, the wind whipping my hair into a frenzy, I realized that this journey was not just about reaching the summit of Everest. It was about the journey within, the journey of self-discovery and growth. I felt a sense of peace settle over me, a sense of peace that I had not felt in a long time. As we began our descent, the wind died down, and an eerie silence fell over the mountain. I felt a sense of gratitude towards Tenzin and Pasang, who had been my guides, my friends, and my confidants throughout this journey. Without them, I would not have made it to this point. As we made our way back to the tea house, I couldn't help but think about the lessons I'd learned on this mountain. I had learned to respect the power of nature, to trust in the wisdom of the local guides, and to listen to the whispers of my own heart. We arrived back in Shukung in the late afternoon, the sun casting a warm glow over the village. I felt a sense of relief wash over me as I settled into the tea house, a steaming cup of tea in my hands. Tenzin and Paisang joined me, their faces creased with smiles. We sat in silence for a while, watching the sun dip below the horizon, casting the valley in a warm orange glow. "How was your day?" Tenzin asked, his eyes crinkling at the corners. I smiled, feeling a sense of peace settle over me. "It was a turning point," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Pasang nodded, his eyes understanding. "The mountain has a way of doing that," he said. As we sat there, watching the stars twinkle to life in the night sky, I knew that this journey was far from over. But I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the lessons I'd learned on the mountain. The silence between us was comfortable, a silence that spoke of shared experiences and unspoken understanding. As I drifted off to sleep, lulled by the sound of the wind rustling through the prayer flags, I knew that I would carry this moment with me for the rest of my life. Chapter 10. The Ice Wall. As we ascended higher into the Himalayas, the landscape transformed into a maze of ice and rock. The trail narrowed and the air grew thinner, making every step a battle against the elements. Our group had been trekking for hours, but the sight of the ice wall ahead took our collective breath away. The towering barrier of frozen waterfalls and glaciers stretched towards the sky, its surface glistening like 1,000 shards of glass. "I've never seen anything like this," I whispered to Tenzin, my eyes fixed on the daunting wall. "It's a test, my friend," he replied, his voice steady and calm. "A test of our resolve, our strength, and our willingness to face our fears." The ice wall loomed before us, its presence both mesmerizing and intimidating. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I gazed up at its towering heights. The thought of climbing this behemoth was daunting, but I knew I had to push through my fear. I took a deep breath, shouldering my pack and adjusting my crampons. "Let's get moving," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. Tenzin nodded, his eyes scanning the wall for the safest route. "We'll take it one step at a time, my friend. The key is to focus on the present moment, not the daunting task ahead." As we began our ascent, the ice wall seemed to grow taller, its surface becoming more treacherous with every step. The sound of dripping water echoed through the air, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the wall was watching us, waiting for us to make a mistake. The higher we climbed, the more my fear began to surface. I felt it creeping up my spine, threatening to overwhelm me at any moment. I glanced over at Tenzin, who was navigating the ice with ease, his movements fluid and confident. "How do you do it, Tenzin?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "How do you face this kind of challenge without fear?" He turned to me, his eyes sparkling with understanding. "Fear is natural, my friend. It's how we respond to it that matters. I've learned to acknowledge my fear, to respect it, but not let it control me." His words struck a chord deep within me. I realized that I had been letting my fear hold me back, dictating my every move. It was time to confront it head-on, to push through the uncertainty and emerge stronger on the other side. As we neared the top of the ice wall, the air grew thinner, and my breath came in ragged gasps. My crampons crunched into the ice, and I felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through my veins. I focused on the present moment, on the sensation of my feet connecting with the ice, on the sound of my own breathing. Suddenly, the fear that had been plaguing me began to recede, replaced by a sense of determination and resolve. I took one final step, and we reached the top of the ice wall, the wind whipping our faces and the sun shining down upon us. As we gazed out at the breathtaking vista, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment wash over me. We had faced our fears, pushed through the uncertainty, and emerged victorious on the other side. The Himalayas stretched out before us, their rugged beauty a testament to the power of perseverance and determination. Tenzin turned to me, a smile spreading across his face. "You see, my friend, the greatest obstacle is not the mountain itself, but the fear that holds us back. Once we confront that fear, nothing can stop us." I nodded, the wind whipping my hair into a frenzy. I knew that this moment, this feeling of triumph and pride, would stay with me forever, a reminder of the power of focus, determination, and the unwavering support of those around me. As we began our descent, the ice wall looming behind us, I felt a sense of gratitude towards this unforgiving landscape. The Himalayas had tested me, pushed me to my limits, and forced me to confront my deepest fears. But they had also given me a gift, the gift of self-discovery, of perseverance, and of the knowledge that I was capable of overcoming even the most daunting challenges. As we made our way back down the mountain, the sun dipping towards the horizon, I knew that I would carry this experience with me for the rest of my life, a reminder of the transformative power of the Himalayas and the unwavering support of those who had shared this journey with me. Chapter 11. The Storm. As we ascended higher into the Himalayas, the air grew thinner and the winds began to pick up. Our group of trekkers huddled together, donning extra layers to combat the biting chill. The sky, a deep shade of indigo, seemed to darken by the minute, as if night was falling prematurely. I felt a sense of unease settling in, like a whispered warning in the back of my mind. Lakpa, our seasoned guide, called a halt as we reached a small clearing. "We'll set up camp here," he announced, his voice steady despite the growing turbulence. "The storm is coming. We need to prepare." Within minutes, the winds howled like a chorus of banshees, threatening to upend our tents. The sky transformed into a churning vortex of grey and black clouds, with flashes of electric blue lightning illuminating the darkness. The storm had arrived, and it was furious. I clutched the tent pole, my knuckles white as the fabric flapped wildly in the gale. The others huddled together, their faces illuminated only by the faint light of their headlamps. The sound of the storm was deafening, a cacophony of thunderclaps, creaking trees, and the constant howl of the wind. In the tumult, I felt my emotions begin to unravel. The storm raging outside mirrored the turmoil brewing within me. Fear, anxiety, and a deep sense of uncertainty threatened to consume me. I thought of my family, my loved ones, and the life I had left behind. What was I doing here, in this unforgiving landscape, so far from the comforts of home? As the storm raged on, Lakpa appeared at my side, his eyes fixed on mine. "You're safe, my friend," he shouted above the din. "We'll get through this together." In that moment, I felt a sense of gratitude toward this man, who had become more than just a guide. He was a mentor, a confidant, and a friend. His words were a balm to my frayed nerves, and I nodded, finding a glimmer of hope in the darkness. Together, we secured the tents, ensuring they wouldn't be swept away by the gale. The others worked in tandem, their movements swift and efficient, as if they had done this before. I watched, mesmerized, as they transformed into a well-oiled machine, each one playing their part in the dance of survival. As the storm showed no signs of abating, Lakpa led us to a nearby cave, partially hidden by the swirling snow. The entrance was narrow, but the interior was surprisingly spacious, with a natural chamber that seemed to swallow the howling wind. We huddled together, our bodies pressed against each other as we waited for the storm to pass. The air inside was stale, but it was warm, and the silence was a welcome respite from the cacophony outside. As I looked around at my companions, I saw the same fear and uncertainty reflected in their eyes. But I also saw something else in the sense of community, of shared experience, and of mutual support. We were in this together, and together we would weather the storm. In the stillness of the cave, I closed my eyes and focused on my breath. The storm raged on outside, but within me, a sense of calm began to take hold. I thought of the journey that had brought me here, the struggles, the triumphs, and the moments of beauty. I thought of the people I'd met along the way, each one leaving an indelible mark on my heart. As I breathed in the musty air of the cave, I felt the storm within me begin to subside. The turmoil, the fear, and the anxiety slowly gave way to a sense of acceptance, of surrender. I was no longer fighting the storm. I was embracing it, acknowledging its power and its beauty. In that moment, I knew that I would emerge from this experience transformed, like the landscape itself, reshaped, renewed, and reborn. The storm would pass, but its impact would stay with me, a reminder of the strength that lay within, waiting to be unleashed. Chapter 12. The Cave. As we ventured deeper into the cave, the air grew thick with the scent of damp earth and moss. The flickering torches cast eerie shadows on the walls, making it seem as though the cave itself was alive, watching us. Our footsteps echoed off the stone, a reminder that we were not alone in this ancient sacred space. Tenzin led the way, his eyes fixed on the path ahead, his footsteps sure and deliberate. I followed closely behind, my senses heightened as we delved deeper into the darkness. The weight of the cave's history pressed upon me, the whispers of ancient monks and pilgrims echoing in my mind. We finally reached a large, dimly lit chamber, the ceiling lost in darkness. The air was heavy with the scent of incense, and the sound of dripping water created a soothing melody. In the centre of the room, a large stone statue of the Buddha sat serene, its eyes closed in eternal meditation. Tenzin motioned for me to sit, and I did, feeling the cool stone beneath me. He handed me a small, intricately carved wooden box. "For your thoughts, my friend," he said, his eyes twinkling with understanding. I opened the box, revealing a small notebook and a piece of charcoal. The silence of the cave enveloped me, and I felt the weight of my journey thus far. The struggles, the triumphs, the moments of doubt and fear. It was time to confront the darkness within. As I began to write, the charcoal scratched against the paper, releasing a torrent of emotions. The pages filled with words, each one a reflection of my inner turmoil. Fears of failure, of not being good enough, of losing myself in the vast expanse of the Himalayas. The struggles with my past, with the memories that haunted me still. But as I wrote, something shifted. The words began to change, reflecting a newfound understanding, a sense of acceptance. I wrote of the beauty I had seen, of the kindness of strangers, of the resilience of the human spirit. The pages filled with hope, with a sense of purpose. As I finished writing, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The cave, once a symbol of darkness and fear, had become a sanctuary, a place of introspection and self-discovery. Tenzin's words echoed in my mind. The greatest challenge lies not in the mountains, but in the depths of our own hearts. I looked up, and Tenzin's eyes met mine, filled with a deep understanding. "You have faced your demons, my friend," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Now it is time to face the mountain." As we left the cave, the bright sunlight was blinding, but I felt a sense of clarity, of purpose. The mountain loomed ahead, its peaks reaching for the sky, but I knew that I was ready. The journey was far from over, but I had found a newfound sense of strength, a sense of self. We began our ascent, the sound of our footsteps echoing off the mountain, a reminder that we were not alone, that we were part of something greater than ourselves. The wind whipped through my hair, carrying the whispers of the cave, reminding me of the lessons I'd learned. I glanced back, the cave a small, dark dot on the landscape, a symbol of my own inner journey. I knew that I would carry its lessons with me, that I would face the challenges ahead with a newfound sense of courage and determination. The mountain, once a daunting task, had become a symbol of my own inner strength, a reminder that the greatest journey lies not in the external world, but in the depths of our own hearts. Chapter 13. Lobuche. As we descended into the valley, the scenery shifted from rugged, snow-capped peaks to a tranquil, verdant landscape. The village of Lobuche, nestled at an altitude of 16,000 feet, was a welcome respite from the grueling trek. Our group moved like a slow-motion film into the village, each person finding their own rhythm in the thin air. My fingers fumbled with simple tasks, untying bootlaces, unzipping jacket pockets, while my breath came in measured gasps that echoed off the stone walls of the Sherpa homes. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of juniper and wood smoke as the villagers went about their daily routines, seemingly unfazed by the presence of outsiders. We had made it to Lobuche, a milestone in our journey to Everest Base Camp. The weight of our accomplishments settled upon us, like the snowflakes gently falling around us. I felt a mix of emotions, pride, exhaustion, and a tinge of melancholy. We had overcome so much, from the treacherous ice walls of the Khumbu Glacier to the relentless inclines of the Himalayan trails. Yet, as we celebrated our success, I couldn't help but think of the challenges still ahead. As I sat on the sunny patio of our lodge, sipping hot tea and watching the villagers go about their daily routines, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey so far. The memories flooded my mind, the bustling streets of Kathmandu, the tranquil monastery of Tengboche, and the eerie silence of the high-altitude landscape. I thought of our guides, Tenzin and Lobsang, who had become an integral part of our team, sharing their wisdom and expertise with us. I thought of the laughter, the tears, and the moments of sheer terror we had shared as a group. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the village, our group gathered around the fireplace in the lodge's common room. The conversation turned to our experiences and the lessons we had learned along the way. Rachel spoke of her struggle to overcome her fear of heights and how the support of the group had helped her push through. Mike shared his awe at the sheer scale of the Himalayas and how it had humbled him. I listened, mesmerized by the stories, as the fire crackled and spat, casting a warm, golden light over our faces. As the evening wore on, I excused myself, feeling the need for a moment of solitude. I stepped out into the night, the stars twinkling above me like diamonds scattered across the velvet expanse. The silence was almost palpable, broken only by the distant sound of a yak's bell and the soft rustling of the wind through the juniper trees. I stood there, lost in thought, as the weight of our accomplishment settled upon me. We had come so far, but we still had a long way to go. As I gazed up at the stars, I couldn't help but think of the challenges that lay ahead. The ice walls of the Lhotse face, the treacherous slopes of the Western Kauam, and the final push to Everest Base Camp all loomed before us like giants. But I knew that we were ready. We had faced our fears, tested our limits, and emerged stronger because of it. The road ahead would be difficult, but we would face it together as a team. As I stood there, lost in thought, I became aware of the silence around me. It was a silence that spoke of the vastness of the Himalayas, of the power of nature, and of the fragility of human existence. It was a silence that reminded me of the beauty and the brutality of this landscape, and of the importance of respecting it. I stood there, frozen in time, as the stars twinkled above me, and the silence enveloped me like a shroud. As I returned to the lodge, the warmth and laughter of my fellow trekkers enveloped me, chasing away the chill of the night. We had accomplished so much, but we knew that the journey was far from over. The weight of our accomplishments settled upon us, a reminder of the challenges we had faced and the ones that still lay ahead. But for now, in this moment, we would savor our triumph and let the beauty of the Himalayas wash over us. Chapter 14. Gorak Shep. Laden with heavy backpacks and an air of determination, our group trudged up the winding trail, the snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas towering above us. The sun was a distant memory, hidden behind a veil of grey clouds that threatened to unleash their fury at any moment. I zipped up my jacket, the wind whipping my face with icy fingers. "Gorak Shep, just a few hours away," Tenzin called out, his voice carrying above the rustling of our gear. "We'll reach Everest Base Camp by lunchtime." I nodded, my eyes fixed on the trail ahead. The final push was upon us, and I could feel the excitement building in my chest. We had been trekking for days, our bodies acclimating to the high altitude, our minds adapting to the harsh conditions. The thought of standing at the foot of the mighty Everest, the highest mountain in the world, sent shivers down my spine. As we climbed higher, the landscape shifted from verdant forests to barren, rocky terrain. The air grew thinner, each breath a conscious effort. I felt my body protesting, my legs aching, my lungs burning. But I pushed on, driven by a sense of adventure, of discovery. We stopped to rest and refuel at a small clearing, the sound of rushing water providing a soothing background hum. I sat on a boulder, my eyes closed, letting the warmth of the sun seep into my skin. The silence was almost palpable, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant call of a bird. I opened my eyes to find Lakpa sitting beside me, his eyes crinkled at the corners as he smiled. "You are doing well, my friend," he said, his voice low and gentle. "The mountain is testing you, but you are strong." I nodded, feeling a sense of gratitude towards this quiet, unassuming man. "Lakpa had been our guide, our mentor, our friend throughout this journey. His wisdom, his patience and his kindness had inspired us to push beyond our limits, to confront our fears and to discover our own strength. The trail narrowed, the incline steepening as we approached the final stretch. The wind howled, threatening to sweep us off our feet, but we pressed on, our footsteps steady, our determination unwavering. The landscape unfolded before us like a canvas of rugged beauty, the snow-capped peaks of Everest, Lhotse and Nuptse rising like giants from the earth. And then, suddenly, we were there. Everest Base Camp, a tiny settlement of colourful tents and makeshift shelters, nestled at the foot of the mighty mountain. I felt a lump form in my throat as I gazed up at the towering peak, its snow-capped summit glistening like a beacon in the fading light. We stood in silence, our eyes drinking in the majesty of the landscape, our hearts swelling with pride and accomplishment. We had done it! We had reached the foot of the highest mountain in the world, a testament to our perseverance, our courage, and our unwavering determination. As we celebrated with hot tea and laughter, I couldn't help but feel a sense of introspection wash over me. This journey had been about more than just reaching a physical destination. It had been about confronting my own fears, my own doubts, and my own limitations. It had been about discovering my own strength, my own resilience, and my own capacity for growth. I looked around at my companions, their faces etched with exhaustion, their eyes shining with a sense of pride and accomplishment. We had done this together, as a team, as a family. And in that moment I knew that this journey would stay with me forever, a reminder of the power of human spirit, of the beauty of the natural world, and of the transformative power of adventure. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the landscape in a warm, golden light, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. We had reached the foot of Everest, but more importantly, we had discovered our own inner strength, our own capacity for growth, and our own unwavering determination. Chapter 15. Kalapatha. As I stood at the summit of Kalapatha, the wind whipping my hair into a frenzy, I felt an overwhelming sense of triumph and closure. The snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas stretched out before me, a breathtaking panorama that seemed to touch the sky. I had never felt so alive, so connected to the natural world and to myself. We had set out from Gorak Shep at dawn, our headlamps casting an eerie glow on the dark terrain. The air was crisp, with a hint of wood smoke carried on the breeze. Our guides, Tenzin and Lakpa, led the way, their footsteps sure and steady on the steep incline. I followed closely behind, my heart pounding in my chest, my breathing laboured. The higher we climbed, the thinner the air grew. I could feel the altitude affecting me, my legs aching with each step, my head spinning with the effort. But I pushed on, driven by a deep-seated determination to reach the top. As we neared the summit, the landscape transformed into a sea of prayer flags, their vibrant colours flapping in the wind. The flags, bearing sacred Tibetan texts and symbols, seemed to whisper blessings and prayers to the gods. I felt a sense of reverence wash over me, a deep respect for the ancient traditions and beliefs that permeated this land. And then suddenly we were there. The summit of Kalapatha, the highest point of our trek. I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and accomplishment, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. I had done it. I had pushed my body to its limits and emerged victorious. Tenzin and Lakpa grinned at me, their faces creasing with pride. "Congratulations!" my friend Tenzin said, his voice warm with emotion. "You have reached the roof of the world." As I gazed out at the breathtaking view, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. This was it, the culmination of my journey, the culmination of my inner transformation. I had set out on this trek seeking answers, seeking solace and peace, and here, at the top of the world, I had found it. I thought back to the struggles I had faced, the doubts and fears that had plagued me, and I realized that I'd been given a rare gift as the chance to confront my demons, to face my fears head-on. I had been forced to confront the darkest corners of my own heart, and had emerged stronger, wiser, and more compassionate as a result. As I stood there, the wind whipping my face, I felt a sense of gratitude for this journey. I was grateful for the challenges, for the struggles, for the moments of doubt and fear. For it was in those moments that I had discovered my own strength, my own resilience. I took one final glance at the breathtaking view, etching it into my memory forever. And then, with a sense of peace and contentment, I began my descent, ready to return to the world below, forever changed by my journey to the Himalayas. Chapter 16, Ferish. As we began our journey back down the mountain, the weight of our accomplishment settled in. The pride and elation of standing at the threshold of Everest Base Camp gave way to a deeper sense of introspection. The rugged beauty of the Himalayas, which had tested our physical limits, now seemed to whisper secrets of the soul. The sun cast a golden glow over the snow-capped peaks as we made our way down to Ferish, a small village nestled in the heart of the Khumbu region. The air was crisp, with a hint of wood smoke and tea, transporting me back to the warmth of the monastery we had visited earlier in our journey. Our footsteps echoed through the valley, a rhythmic reminder of the miles we had traversed. As we entered Ferish, the familiar sight of the Himalayan Rescue Association's aid post greeted us. It was here that we had received our initial briefing on altitude sickness, and it was here that we would reflect on the lessons learned. The village bustled with trekkers and guides, all sharing stories of their own journeys. We settled into the same tea house where we had stopped on our way up, the owner, Tenzin, welcoming us with a warm smile and a steaming pot of tea. Over cups of hot chai, we relived the highlights of our trek, our laughter and conversation mingling with the whispers of the wind. Pasang, our guide, regaled us with tales of his own climbs, of near misses and narrow escapes. His eyes sparkled with a deep respect for the mountain, and I realized that our journey had been only a small part of a much larger story. As the evening wore on, our conversation turned introspective. We spoke of the physical challenges we'd overcome, of the moments of doubt and fear. But we also spoke of the deeper lessons, of the bonds forged, and the perspective shifted. For me, the journey had been a reminder of the importance of humility, of recognizing the limits of human endurance and the power of nature. I never realized how small I was until I stood at the foot of Everest, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Tenzin, our guide, nodded in understanding. The mountain teaches us humility, but it also teaches us compassion. We must respect the power of nature, but we must also respect each other. As we sipped our tea, the stars began to twinkle above, a celestial reminder of the vastness and mystery of the universe. I felt a sense of gratitude for this journey, for the people I'd met and the lessons I'd learned. The next morning we packed our bags, our footsteps heavier as we bid farewell to Farish. The village, which had been a mere stopover on our way up, had become a sanctuary, a place of reflection and growth. As we descended further, the landscape unfolding like a tapestry before us, I knew that this journey would leave a lasting impact. The Himalayas had tested our bodies, but they had also touched our souls. We had been changed by the experience, our perspectives broadened, our hearts opened. And as we made our way back to Lukla, the starting point of our trek, I knew that we would carry the lessons of the mountain with us, long after we left the Himalayas behind. As I lay in my tent that night, the sound of the river rushing outside, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had also been transformative. I'd faced my fears, tested my limits, and discovered a deeper sense of purpose. The Himalayas had taught me to respect the power of nature, to recognize the beauty and the danger that lurked in every step. But they had also taught me to respect myself, to acknowledge my own strength and vulnerability. As I drifted off to sleep, the stars twinkling above, I knew that I would carry the lessons of the mountain with me, long after I left the Himalayas behind. The journey may have ended, but the transformation had only just begun. Chapter 17, Epilogue, The Legacy of the Himalayas. The culture shock of returning to New York hit harder than any altitude sickness. The cacophony of horns and sirens replaced the whisper of prayer flags. Glass towers stretched skyward, yet seemed to pale against my memories of Everest's majesty. In the months that followed, I noticed subtle but profound changes. My former coffee addiction replaced by a collection of Himalayan teas. My cluttered apartment slowly transformed into a minimalist space. My rushed morning routine now including meditation. My career goals shifting from corporate success to environmental advocacy. The journey's impact spread beyond my personal transformation. Started a non-profit connecting urban youth with wilderness experiences. Developed a documentary series about Sherpa culture. Established a scholarship fund for Nepalese students. Created a network of former trekkers supporting sustainable tourism. 5 years later, I found myself back in Nepal, this time leading a group of first-time trekkers. As we approached Lukla, I saw in their eyes the same mix of fear and excitement I'd felt. But now I understood something deeper. The Himalayas don't just challenge us physically, they transform us spiritually. Watching the sunrise paint Everest Peak golden, I realized that my journey hadn't ended when I left Nepal, it had only begun. The mountains had taught me that true adventure isn't about reaching a destination, but about allowing yourself to be forever changed by the path. The Himalayas continue to call, not as a conquest to be achieved, but as a teacher whose lessons unfold over a lifetime. Each return reveals new insights, deeper understanding, and fresh challenges. The mountains remain eternal and unchanging, while we evolve through our encounters with their majesty. As I guide others along these ancient trails, I share not just the physical path, but the wisdom gained from every step. That strength comes not from conquering mountains, but from embracing our vulnerability before them. That success lies not in reaching the summit, but in how we handle each step of the climb. That the greatest adventures transform not just our experiences, but our very essence. The legacy of the Himalayas lives on through every life touched by their grandeur, every story shared around campfires, and every heart open to the possibility of transformation. My journey continues, as does the eternal dance between mountain and wanderer, teacher and student, challenge and growth. And somewhere high above the clouds, prayer flags still flutter in the wind, carrying our hopes and dreams to the roof of the world.